Welcome. In this explainer, we're going to crack the code on business strategy. Think of this as your personal study session for the final exam on how competition really works. So, let's start with this big puzzle. Why is it that some industries, seem to just print money, while others, even with huge famous brands, can barely break even? What is their secret? Well, the answer isn't just about having a cool product or some clever marketing. It all comes down to the industry's structure, the basic rules of the game for that specific business. All right, class, so to really nail this concept, we're going to follow this study plan. First, we'll meet the forces, then we'll do a little pop quiz on each one, and finally, we'll apply what we've learned. By the end of this, you'll be able to analyze pretty much any industry you want. Okay, first up, let's meet our guide for this whole thing. This framework was developed by a Harvard professor named Michael Porter, way back in 1979. And yeah, I know that sounds like a long time ago, but trust me, it's still one of the most powerful tools in business strategy today. These are the big five. These are the forces that decide just how intense the competition is, and ultimately, how much profit there is to go around. Think of them as the 5 essential chapters we absolutely have to master for our exam. Okay, time for a pop quiz to make sure we've really got this. I'll ask the questions, and we'll figure out the answers together. Ready? Let's do it. First question. How easy is it for some new company to just waltz in and start competing? That simple question, well, that's the heart of our first force. This slide just lays it out perfectly. If you want to start a new drug company, you're facing these massive hurdles. We call them barriers to entry. But starting a new burger joint, the barriers are way, way lower. Now, here's the key thing to remember for the test. High barriers mean a low threat from new players, and that is fantastic for profits. All right, question number 2. Who's holding all the cards here? Is it the companies in the industry, or is it the people who sell them their key supplies? I mean, just look at the power dynamic here. Airlines are pretty much stuck. They can only buy their big planes from 2 main companies, Boeing and Airbus. That gives the suppliers huge leverage. Meanwhile, a fast food chain, they can buy their flour and potatoes from tons of different farms, which gives them the power to shop around for the best price. Okay, let's flip the script. How much power do we, the customers, the buyers, have to drive prices down? So here's the absolute key for the exam. If a customer looks at a product and thinks, they're all basically the same, and it's super easy to switch to a competitor for a better deal, then buyer power is incredibly high. Think about it. When you book a flight, what do? You go online, you compare every single airline in seconds, and you probably pick the cheapest one. That's high buyer power. But when your doctor prescribes a very specific patented medicine, you really don't have many choices. That's low buyer power. Now pay close attention to this one, because this one's a little tricky. A substitute is not a direct competitor. It's a totally different product, maybe from another industry entirely, that solves the same basic problem for the customer. For instance, a business meeting that used to absolutely require a flight can now just happen over Zoom. That video call is the substitute. And because it exists, it puts a ceiling on how much airlines can charge. A unique, patented drug, on the other hand, almost never has that problem. And for our final quiz question, we've got the one we usually think of first, the classic head-to-head fight between the companies that are already in the market. The airline industry is basically the perfect storm for intense rivalry. They have these enormous fixed costs, their planes, their airport gates, and we, the customers, see their product as pretty much a commodity. And what's the result? Constant, brutal price wars just to fill empty seats, which, of course, crushes profits for everyone involved. Okay, pop quiz is over. Now, the real genius of this framework isn't just looking at one force by itself. It's about seeing how all 5 of them interact to basically decide the fate of an entire industry. And I mean, the results really speak for themselves. Just look at this data. Airlines, where pretty much all 5 forces are strong and working against them, just struggle to make a decent return. But pharmaceuticals, where those same forces are weak, are wildly profitable. That's not luck. That is industry structure in action. All right, it's time for a bonus round. Let's apply everything we've just learned to a really modern industry, video streaming. Like Netflix, Disney Plus, all those guys. Let's run through the forces real quick. Rivalry? It is absolutely brutal. Our power as buyers? Super high. You can cancel with one click. Supplier power? Also very high. The studios that make the hit shows demand billions for their content. And substitutes? They're everywhere. gaming, social media, you name it. It is a tough, tough business to be in. Okay, so for some extra credit, let's look at the critiques. I mean, this model is from 1979. Is it really a perfect fit for today's super fast-paced digital world? Well, the main criticism is that the model can be a little too static. It's kind of like taking a single photograph of an industry that's actually moving and changing all the time. Plus, some people argue that it's missing a really important piece of the puzzle. That missing piece is what people often call compliments. Think about apps on your smartphone. They aren't your suppliers, they aren't your buyers, but the more great apps there are, the more valuable your phone becomes. For a company like Apple, the App Store is so critical that a lot of experts argue that compliments should really be considered the sixth force. All right, let's bring this all home for our final review. This right here is your ultimate cheat sheet for the exam, so you might want to get ready to take a screenshot. This table just perfectly summarizes our whole lesson. You can see, force by force, exactly why the pharmaceutical industry is structured to be so profitable, while the airline industry is just set up for a constant battle for survival. And that's a wrap. You've officially aced the exam. You now have the toolkit to look at any business, whether it's a coffee shop or a car company, and understand the deep forces that are shaping its destiny. So, the only question left is, what industry are you going to analyze first?